All right. Good afternoon. It's 3:20. And I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let's begin with the roll call. Roll call of commission members. So after I call your name, please reply here present and confirm that you can see and hear me. Commissioner Fair.
Present, and I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rubin.
Present, and I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner.
Present, I can see and hear you.
Excellent, thank you. Commissioner Ponce. Commissioner Ponce. Okay, we'll come back to her. And we'll go and move into the statement. In 2020, Governor Pritzker signed Public Act 101-0640, making certain amendments to the Open Meetings Act so that we, along with other boards and commissions, can continue to host virtual meetings during the COVID-19 public health emergency, provided that certain conditions are met. One of those conditions is that Chairman Wong of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks determines that an in-person meeting of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks and its permanent review committee are not practical or prudent. Chairman Wong has determined pursuant to Section 7E2 of the Open Meetings Act that an in-person meeting of this Commission on Chicago Landmarks and its permanent review committee is not practical or prudent. He's also determined pursuant to Section 7E5 that because of the disaster as declared by the governor, it is infeasible for at least one member of the Commission on Chicago Landmarks or its chief administrative officer or chief legal officer to be physically present at the meeting place for either meeting, in as much as there is no physical meeting place. Pursuant to a resolution adopted by the Commission on Chicago Landmarks on June 4th, 2020, regarding the chairman's emergency rulemaking powers, Chairman Wong issued emergency rules governing the conduct of remote public commission meetings and permit provisions for remote public participation effective February 18th, 2022. These rules are posted to the Commission's website. In line with these emergency rules, today's regular permanent review committee meeting is a virtual meeting being simulcast to the general public via live streaming. Permanent review meetings have been held virtually since May of 2020. Meetings are structured to minimize the chances for technical difficulties. Members of the general public have been encouraged to submit written statements in advance of the meeting, and these have been posted to the Commission's website and are available for public view during the meeting at www.chicago.gov/CCL. Per the emergency rules, verbal statements by the general public for all agenda items will take place at the beginning of the meeting. So all those wishing to speak at today's meeting should be signed into the Zoom meeting at this time. Before we hear staff presentations on the agenda items and ask to hear from owners or applicants and their teams, we will open the floor to members of the general public who wish to make comment about the items to be heard at today's agenda. Members of the public wishing to comment should use the raise hand function of Zoom to indicate that they wish to speak. Members of the public not using a smartphone or computer and instead phoning in on the meeting should press *9 to activate the raise hand function and do the same to deactivate it. I, the meeting facilitator, will call out those names one by one and unmute those people. Once unmuted, speakers should give their full name and organization, if any, to represent. Each speaker is allocated 3 minutes to speak. And so after staff presentations have been made on their agenda item, and
Chairman, the Zoom is showing that your internet is a really poor connection. I don't know if you can move closer to your router or if you can use a wired connection, because currently you're frozen for us.
hello.
Kamal, this is Candle. Might a simple fix be for the commissioner to turn his video off? Does that help?
Yes, that's what I just did.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Chairman. Now, with your video off, I think it might be a little better.
Okay, let's try that. We're at the first agenda item, project 2412 South Michigan Avenue in the road, in the Motor Road District. Are there any members of the general public wishing to speak on this item?
We have one hand raised. I'm going to share the clock. We have Mary Lou Seidel from Preservation Chicago.
Hi, can you hear me?
Ken.
Thanks. Mary Lou Seidel, I know my own name, the Director of Community Engagement at Preservation Chicago. I do want to, I am respecting the agenda, but there's no place on the agenda to talk about how frustrating it still is to see this list of permit review committee requests and have no idea what it looks like or have an opportunity to reflect on what kind of impact it might have on the neighborhood or the community. So I'm really hopeful that much like the Plan Commission and other committees in Chicago and outside of Chicago, we can start seeing some of these plans beforehand. So when we speak before the presentation, we know what we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary Lou. Noted. The second, are there any other members of the general public wishing to speak on this item? I'm seeing none. And so we will move to the second agenda item, which is for the project at 835 West Chalmers in the McCormick Row House District. Are there any members of the general public wishing to speak on this item? I'm seeing none. So moving to the third item. The third item on the agenda is for the project at 841 West Chalmers, also in the McCormick Row House District. Are there any members of the general public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none. The fourth agenda item is for the project at 30. Hopefully this is for this item. The fourth item is for the project at 3248 South King Drive in the Calumet-Giles Prairie District. Are there any members of the general public wishing to speak on this item? I see Mr. Ward Miller.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, yes. Well, a good afternoon once again. Ward Miller, Executive Director of the nonprofit advocacy group Preservation Chicago. At 3248 South Martin Luther King Drive, we're just very concerned about what this large development of 14 masonry two-story raised townhouses will actually look like. And we've not seen the presentation, so we're at a little bit of a disadvantage kind of working in a vacuum. But we just wanted to share that so oftentimes in recent years, and not all the time, but so oftentimes we've seen proposals that just don't inspire sort of good architecture and are not of the same level and care given to the landmark district buildings that are protected under ordinance. So we just want to encourage that this project, especially with 14 of them all in a row, really rise to the occasion, are inspiring, fit into the district beautifully. I know Commissioner Hughes in the past has oftentimes talked about this. Mr. Chairman, you have too. So we're just hoping, again, sight unseen, that these 14 masonry two-story row houses, townhouses, really are designed with incredible thought and skill, at least addressing their facades and the way they fit into the district, because the worst thing would be to see 14 buildings that are just, cookie cutter designs that can be seen anywhere in Chicago. So we really want to encourage, maybe even in the future, that in landmark districts, there be certain additional design requirements instituted that would help developers and architects and people in the design trade to encourage them to really do spectacular designs when we have these infill projects. So again, sight unseen, we just want to encourage buildings that really are of character with the district and really are outstanding in their design, whatever they may be. Just want to encourage, again, maybe some design standards that we see used in the Fulton Randolph Market District and other districts like North Kenwood be implemented here, and just encouraging and hoping for the best. And that's all. So thank you so much, and Happy New Year to each of you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Happy New Year to you. The fifth, are there any other members of the general public wishing to speak on this item? I don't see any. So we're going to go to agenda number 5. The fifth agenda item is for the project at 1118 North Winchester in the East Village District. Are there any members of the general public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, I believe that is all the members of the general public who have indicated they wish to speak on agenda items, and therefore this concludes the public comment portion of the meeting, and we'll now go through the agenda, which will begin with the approval of the previous meeting minutes, regular meeting on December 8th. And I'd like to request a motion to approve the December 8th meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. Commissioner Rubin.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubin. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Commissioner Fair.
Seconded by Commissioner Fair. And do the roll call. Commissioner Ponce?
Recuse myself. I was not present.
Okay. Commissioner Hughes?
Yes, approved.
Great. And I'm a yes. The motion carries unanimously. And the minutes will be posted to the Commission's website. And our first project is 2412 South Michigan in the 3rd Ward, Alderman Dow, Motor Road District. The proposed installation of a new 13-foot 5 by 2-foot non-illuminated sign on the front facade. And I believe Tyler Taylor has the presentation.
Yes, can you all see and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. The subject property is at 2412 South Michigan Avenue and is a contributing building within the Motor Row District. Motor Row was one of the first retail areas that concentrated automobile showrooms and related services in the country, dating to the early days of the automobile industry. The district is characterized by buildings with large areas of glazing at street level for the display of cars framed by ornamental terracotta or masonry detailing. A few examples include the showrooms for Hudson, Mitchell, Premier, Buick, and Marmon all along South Michigan. The subject building was built in 1909 as the first showroom for the Cadillac Motor Company and is one of the oldest surviving showrooms in the district. We have an application for the sign identifying the new retail business that occupies the building, pictured here at left, which has not yet been approved. Our office received the sign permit application on December 16th and issued corrections the same day. Shortly afterward, we learned the sign had already been installed. The owners of the business and building recently relocated their business to Chicago and hired an expediter to handle the sign permit process. Due to its height above grade, the sign required a city council order, which was issued. A permit for use of the public way was applied for and issued by BACP on November 8th, 2022. Upon receiving the permit from BACP, the owners believed it was the sign permit and directed their sign contractors to install the sign. Signage was a part of the historic appearance of the showroom buildings throughout the district's history. Many of the showroom buildings have a sign carved or inset into the masonry at the center parapet, as shown in the previous images. This particular building did not have a masonry sign, but did have a sign for Cadillac attached to the parapet at the same location as the existing one, though it was somewhat smaller, as shown in the photo on the right from 1910. The sign, as installed, measures 13 foot 5 inches in width and 2 feet in height, mounted 31 feet 3 inches above grade. Each letter is approximately 1.5 inches thick, made of metal with a black finish and mounted directly to the facade with threaded pins, flush with the face of the terracotta. Per our conversation with the owners, consideration was made to respect the character and history of the district when the sign was being designed. The permit application states that the intention was to attach the sign at mortar joints only. The sign is not illuminated, so there are no additional penetrations required for conduit. Typically, for signs in these locations, we consider the overall size of the proposed sign in relation to the size and scale of the building, compatibility of the sign appearance, as well as the best design and means of attachment to minimize the number of penetrations as much as possible. Staff recommends that, given the historic precedent for a sign on the front parapet at the subject building, as well as the circumstances regarding the new sign at the site, the committee find the sign as proposed will not have an adverse effect on the significant historical or architectural features of the landmark building and the district, and approve the sign as installed. Alderman Dowell issued a letter of support for the sign. The Near South Planning Board is aware of the project and has not provided comment. The owners and sign contractor are here to answer any questions.
Thanks so much, Tyler. Commissioners, before we hear from the owners, do we have any questions for Tyler? I see Commissioner Fair.
Yeah, just a quick question, Tyler. For the original Cadillac sign that used to be on that building, do we have any idea of how that was mounted previously? Just out of curiosity.
No, because the only evidence we have is that
photo.
photo that's really low resolution, but there's, we know what the building looked like before this Black Lion sign was installed, and there wasn't any outline or anything. It appears not to have been in contact with the terracotta, but short answer, no, we don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? Seeing none, let's hear from the owner. Can we please hear from Elizabeth Emery?
Hi there.
Hello.
Good afternoon, commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to provide a statement. We trust that you received our 128-page presentation as a pre-read to this meeting, and hope that you do understand that we greatly respect the history of our building and the history of the Motor Road District. My name is Elizabeth Emery, and I'm an alumna of the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and speaking on behalf of our companies, Emery Properties LLC, a real estate holding company, and Black Lion International Incorporated, an everything but ordinary gift and home furnishing store, and our family-owned brand. I've been living in Chicago for the past 18 years, focusing my work in branding and design from the small businesses to global brands around the world, along with our retail gift and home furnishings businesses in Charlotte, North Carolina. To say that we're disappointed that we find ourselves in this position today is an understatement. We recently had the opportunity to sell our property in Charlotte, North Carolina, and took a major risk as small business owners to move our businesses from North Carolina to Chicago in one of the most challenging economic climates in US history. As my family looks to retirement this year, and as I carry on our family's 30-year brand legacy, we decided to reinvest in Chicago, where my husband, 4-year-old daughter, and as of several months ago, my mother now resides. We handpicked the Cadillac building at 2412 South Michigan and specifically chose to house our businesses in the Motor Road District based on its history, relevance, and historical synergies with our brand. An extension of the South Loop, Bronzeville, and our neighborhood, The Gap, we chose a building in a qualified opportunity zone against all odds that desperately needs investment from businesses like ours. When applying our brand to our building, we followed the sign process at www.chicago.gov and specifically the sign permits chapter. We hired a third-party expediter via our sign provider, Windy City Signs and Graphics, also a small business, to additionally ensure that we followed the correct process. We understood that we had all approvals necessary based on this statement on the city's site. When all city approvals are granted, the city will notify the applicant via email. The applicant can then pay the permit fee and print out the permit online. On November 8th, we received an email titled "Permit Issued." It came from do-not-reply@thecityofchicago.org. I forwarded the approval to our sign company, And between November 8th and November 23rd, our sign was fabricated, and on November 23rd, our sign was installed. To our surprise, 2 days before Christmas, nearly 1 month later, we received an email saying that the Historic Preservation Division was taking our sign to committee review. To date, there are still no permits listed in our City of Chicago dashboard other than the one that was approved and that we paid for that would indicate that any additional approvals or steps in the process were or are required. A clear breakdown in communication. As of our first call with the Historic Preservation Division on December 29th, and to our disappointment, no one from any division or committee has had the courtesy to visit our property or meet with us in person regarding our sign or regarding any kind of issue. Our Black Lion family brand was specifically and carefully redesigned to live out its next chapter in Chicago's historic Motor Row. The historic synergies between the original family-owned business that Brian and Florence Lathrop established in 1909 when they developed the Cadillac building and a number of notable structures at Motor Row, the Lion connection between Florence Lathrop Field Page's commission of the Art Institute Lions to my time at the Art Institute and to the synergies with our original brand mark and the family-owned aspect of our business are all important details that solidify our belief that we are exactly where we are meant to be. We are doing exactly what we are meant to be doing, embracing our entrepreneurial spirits, preserving an iconic piece of history, educating our community on the history of our building, and respecting the past to build the future. Our sign is a beacon for our brand, a beacon that was carefully designed, considered, and installed in its original intended place, the same placement as the Cadillac sign in 1909, by one of the most notable figures in branding in the world, in a relevant Art Deco style that's synonymous with Motor Row. A story for another day and another exciting layer to the historical significance and relevance of our property. We cannot say the same for many of the other design decisions and signs that have been approved, hand painted, and installed along Michigan Avenue that are completely irrelevant to the original intended visual design language of Chicago's historic Motor Row. Page 9 of the Secretary of the Interior's standards states that storefront structures often were designed to accommodate signs, and that the appropriate location in these cases is the one originally intended. So to conclude, we received a letter of support from Alderman Dowell, as Tyler mentioned previously, who has visited our store and who has been incredibly supportive of our business and who we're grateful to for her support. We've invested a significant amount of money in our building, in our sign, and driving positive change in our community. Black Lion is an improvement to the Motor Row district and driving economic activity in our area. When we set out on this new chapter, our goal was to create a place that everyone in our community can call home. And that is exactly what we have done, with absolutely no intention of breaking any standards. We ask for your compassion, your understanding, and approval of our sign at Black Lion at 2412 South Michigan Avenue, and we welcome you to visit and experience Black Lion. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Emery, for that history. The commissioners, do we have any questions for the owner and their team? Commissioner Fair?
Yeah, I think, well, firstly, thank you for, providing a lot of the context and background on that. That definitely helps kind of round the situation out a bit. I know in the packet we received, it wasn't completely clear on the location of the anchor points, which are believed to be at mortar joints. And if that's just something that, could be confirmed, I think that would be helpful.
I can tell you that we originally requested in our very first briefing to the sign company that the stud mounts be placed in the mortar joints. That was part of our written brief. You can see it in the presentation that we provided. Unfortunately, without presenting or having that opportunity to present our entire presentation, it's a little bit hard to just, speak candidly about it. But what I can say is that we did originally request it. I do know that the fabricator does put those points on during the fabrication process. And the original template that they did put up to mount the sign to the building is no longer in existence because it was destroyed on the day. So that's all I can tell you at this point. I can only say that we have, done exactly what we thought was the appropriate thing. And unfortunately, there's a clear breakdown in communication and the process on that website, to today's date,
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes.
Yeah, following up to Commissioner Fair's point, I do think the commission is in favor of the mortar joints being used unless there's a detrimental reason why it can't be mounted in that manner. I think we are in favor of it being that being in the details of this signage as it goes up. So Tyler, I don't know if that's something that can be added to the recommendations or if that's something that can be revisited in the future as the sign goes up.
Just Commissioner Hughes, to clarify, this sign is already installed.
And how is, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
how is the
exhibit we received with the sign permit application did include a note saying that the letters were to be mounted at mortar joints with threaded pins. The sign has been already installed due to the chain of events we described, and so we don't have a way to confirm that that's what happened, but that is what was intended.
So I'm sorry, I'm a little confused here. I understand that the sign is already up. So what exactly are we approving today?
The sign as installed, given the circumstances.
So it's a retro approval.
Essentially, yes.
Okay. Okay.
The actual permit application has not for the sign has not yet been approved. It requires PRC or this PRC meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Thank you, Tyler.
Is there a way for us to figure out how it's mounted?
I believe we had a representative of the sign contractor.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Would you be able to illuminate us?
Yes, thank you, Commissioners. I did want to clarify a little bit on that. And my name is Dick Reeves with Windy City Signs and Graphics. Elizabeth hired us to fabricate and install the sign and also go through the permit process. But we are a new company ourselves. We've been in business for 2 years. Me and my son started the business, and I'll fess up to not fully being aware of the permit process, and that's kind of where we kind of jumped the gun and installed this. When we had these signs are actually 2 inches thick, and they're aluminum. They're fabricated by hand. So when they place the sockets for where the pins go, they do that by hand, even though they try to match the grout as best they can. There's no real guarantee. In fact, they don't even have a digital template of that to show the exact location. I went back and asked for it. If we had like an acrylic letter type of sign that's laser cut out and it's digitally placed, we have better control over that. But since this is a hand located during their fabrication, we're kind of stuck with what they have. So I can't speak as to exactly 100% on the grout lines, off the grout lines or what, but you know, it's, the sign has been installed and, you know, with the 1/4-inch pins, the threaded inserts into the side of the building.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Commissioner Hughes, any follow-up on that?
No, thank you. And my apologies. I assumed in the packet it was a mock-up of the sign actually installed. So
The renderings
you,
are good these
guys.
days.
yeah, they are. Thank you, guys.
Commissioner Rubin.
Hi, thank you. I just want to say thank you, Ms. Emery, for your presentation. I recognize you certainly come with a you know, a longtime family-owned business and you know, a longtime stake in Chicago and in this neighborhood. It's highly important and highly emotional, and I think we all can see it. And going through this process can be cumbersome and take a while. I guess my thought here is that, you know, at this point we are reviewing for something that's already been there, recognizing that mistakes happen. This isn't the first time that we're looking back and post approving something. I guess what I'd be concerned about, one is if on the level of sign manufacturing, you know, certainly it's, you know, it's a little concerning to hear that you never really know what you're going to get with a fabricator, especially when you're dealing with sign installation in a historic district where the measurements really need to be accurate as to where they're going to be placed and can't just be a crapshoot. So I'd say in going forward, really understanding the process of what how this is a little bit different when you are dealing with this type of historic building is critical in future projects. And since it's already in there, you know, obviously we wish Black Lion the best. We hope this is a company that is in this building for you know, for a very long time, for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, longer than that. There will be a day eventually down the line where you know, this building will be used for another purpose potentially. And I guess the guarantee I'd be looking for is when, for the day comes that the sign is removed and something else is put in its place, what are those people going to find, and what will be the condition of the material if, in fact, it wasn't the mortar joints that were drilled into, but terracotta panels themselves. So I don't know if this is a question necessarily for Ms. Emery or for Mr. Reeves, but maybe for Mr. Taylor with the city. What would be the course of action in removing a sign if damage has been done? If we're looking back to this meeting as a historical moment that happened, how can we kind of guarantee that, that there is some accountability for the condition of the materials under the sign when we get to that somewhere down the line?
It's a bit difficult because, as you mentioned, we don't know how far in the future that will be happening. If the sign is removed. Part of the reason for our recommendation was to minimize the number of additional penetrations that would need to be made to remedy the situation, since the sign has already been installed and there is nothing we can do about that now. I don't know at this point, as typically our conditions of approval apply to the permit while it's under construction. So I guess to answer very honestly, I don't know exactly if that's something that we could do through our conditions of approval or how that would be enforced in the future. But it is something we could look into.
Yeah, and I understand in terms of the mechanisms of it. It's kind of a blind spot because you don't know whether you're dealing with a year from now or 50 years from now.
Exactly.
To some degree, as a building owner, Ms. Emery, you'll want to consider, as the owner of this building, you'll want to consider what it takes to replace materials when they're broken. And things break. It might not be under that sign. It might be somewhere else in the building. But having a sense of what materials replacement would involve, what the costs are, knowing that if a terracotta panel is chipped or broken somewhere else in the building, where do you source that material? What's it going to cost? I would just say, like, knowing the signs there and going forward, I'd encourage you to do the homework so that if the time comes that you need to do that kind of repair, that you feel like you kind of know where it's coming from now that you are a steward of a historic building. So it's a good learning experience as somebody who is owning a historic building, sort of to know ahead of time what is involved with its upkeep, rather than trying to deal with it in an emergency situation somewhere down the line. So, so I do commend you on that, and congratulations on owning a historic building.
Thank you. We just to build on what you just said, I mean, we fully understand, you know, that the building has historical relevance. I think one of the challenges is that there's no information for people who are coming into this neighborhood that is placed in a clear and concise way, in a way where you can really understand the process. And I think that I don't know what that looks like. I don't think it's something we solve on this telephone call, but what I will say is that I do think that some work needs to be done for people who are entering historic districts like this in Chicago to have a clear place that they can go. And one of my biggest questions in this whole process is why wasn't your team involved at the very first step? It almost feels like we've gone backwards in the process. And I know that that's probably a big question and there's tons of history there, but, you know, as a new business owner entering a community, you know, that clearly has relevance historically, and that, you know, there are some US interior standards for, but there's no specific motor road district standards or even city of Chicago standards necessarily that are in a place where it's readily available and people can find it. You know, I think that that's critical. You know, one of the comments that was made in our call on December 29th was around, you know, your deed included information around the historical relevance of the building. Well, no, it didn't. You know, I've gone back and researched, and our deed mentions nothing about the historical relevance of the individual property nor the district. And so, again, I think there's a lot of work to do there from a historical standpoint, as well as a process standpoint when you go to make a change to a building or get a sign approved or whatever that might look like. And so our question is how can we help be, you know, an example and part of that positive change, because we never intended to be in this situation. You know, if we had not gotten an email from the city of Chicago and a do not reply email address saying permit issued, it didn't say what kind of permit, it just said permit issued, you know, we would never be in this place that we're in today.
Okay. Understood. Commissioner Hughes.
I'm circling back, and I think Ms. Emery, I don't have a direct answer to your question. Maybe Deanna does from our staff, but Deanna, did you want to say something?
Hello, commissioners. I just did want to say that, you know, we do have actually an involvement right from the beginning process of a permit application, but what is specific circumstance about a sign in this situation is that it required multiple approvals by different agencies. And the public way permit is the approval that Ms. Emery is referencing. The council order was another thing that goes through the city council, and the actual building permit is the building permit that we are discussing is what we are involved with. And we do have our website. We do have information on our districts. We also have guidelines and landmarks ordinance. And as Ms. Emery indicated, she was aware that this is a historic building in a historic district. So I think that it's a very unfortunate circumstance of how the public way permit notification may have been worded. I can't speak to someone else's process, but it is the way that we are involved in the review of a permit application is that we are added as one of the reviewers in the typical Department of Buildings application process and review, either by electronic means or whatever the case may be, depending on the circumstances of the application. So we do not have separate applications. We're not reviewing them separately from the standard Department of Buildings process. I hope that answers a part of the question.
All right. Thank you, Deanna. Commissioner Hughes, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much. And I did have another comment or suggestion about the staff's recommendations on this one. I think the reason we're having this really long discussion, and several of the commissioners have mentioned how the sign is mounted and where the sign is mounted, is because typically in situations like this, we encourage, and more times than not, the sign to be mounted into the mortar joints so that when it is removed, you still have that surface, that landmarked surface intact. And so since none of us on this call know if the sign is mounted in the mortar joints, I'm going to recommend adding a clause into the staff recommendations that the surface behind the sign, those individual blocks be repaired as needed if the sign is mounted into the blocks as opposed to the mortar joints.
Yeah, I was just gonna, just as a point of discussion before going to that, the damage, I mean, so we're gonna, if it is mounted into the stone, the damage is there. So we're going to take it off and risk damaging the building more and to repair those, or?
No. I'm saying in the future, if
In the
another
future,
tenant
absolutely.
if another tenant comes, if another sign has to be put up, whenever this sign is removed, then whoever is responsible should repair whatever stonework behind the sign that's needed. On an as-needed basis. And then, of course, in the future, make sure signs are mounted to the mortar.
Yeah, and I think, Deanna, the process would be that typically would we have the opportunity to review that? Or, I mean, that would typically be something that would be caught by Historic Preservation Division in the permit process.
We will have opportunity to see new sign permits at the point that they are applied for in the future. And certainly we would have opportunity to see any repair permits for the facade.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that. Commissioner Ponce.
Yes, thank you. So to date, we don't have any documentation of the actual installation.
Commissioner, we visited the site to try to determine that ourselves. And the image that was on the last slide, you can see that there is a very little gap between the facade and the sign. So that's why it is difficult for us to really understand where those penetrations are.
Is it worth having a third-party evaluator take a look at this? Just thinking about the comments made by Commissioner Rubin and Commissioner Hughes, thinking about the future and just the integrity of the way the installation was made, having a closer look.
Perhaps.
I think at this point, if I might, I think at this point, we know we have a solid surface below the sign. There was no damage, and we have a very fine point of penetration. Even if you have, half and half, maybe a certain number of penetrations are in mortar joints, and maybe a small number are in the face or terracotta. It is a small point, and so we feel in our recommendations that at this point, it's better to leave it alone than try to remove, do more, do repairs, than try to reinstall a sign and make new penetrations. And that is one of the things that we considered as we were thinking through how best to bring this to you. So this sign is very light. It is not, it's not illuminated, doesn't have any of this other equipment that is mounted behind it. It doesn't have any penetrations for conduits. So in our minds, it is not it should not be that extreme as installed to maintain it until such time that a replacement will need to be done.
Commissioner Ponce, does that answer what your question is?
No, thank you. Thank you, Deanna, for your answer. This
Okay.
position is,
Yeah, we're in a challenging position. The sign is already up. There's concern about, having to remove it and create further damage. Commissioners, any other, and I think just Commissioner Hughes had the recommendation of just adding the other part of the motion that we would make sure that we review, any future signage that goes in there, of course. But with that, is there any other points of discussion, commissioners, on this one? Seeing none, I'd like to request a motion, or Commissioner Hughes kind of made a motion that was slightly revised. And do we have a second?
I'll second it. Commissioner Rubin.
Commissioner Rubin has seconded, and we'll do the roll call for the amended motion. Commissioner Fair
Yes.
is a yes. And Commissioner Ponce?
yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ponce is a yes as well, and I'm a yes also. All right. Thank you. It's a challenging one. Moving on. 835 West Chalmers, 43rd Ward, Alderman Knudsen, McCormick Row District, Row House District. These are the proposed alterations, including a new rear addition and reconstruction of a front porch. And Tyler Taylor has the presentation.
Thank you. Okay, this is 835 West Chalmers. The subject property is on a corner lot located within the McCormick Row House District at the intersection of North Chalmers Place and West Chalmers Place. It's the oldest building in the district and was originally built as housing for professors at the Presbyterian Seminary of the Northwest, which later became McCormick Theological Seminary. A permit application for renovation work is pending and was received November 15th, 2022. The scope of work includes additions at the rear of the building that will be partially visible. Photo 1 on the left shows the visibility of the rear addition from West Chalmers. Photo 2 on the right shows the visibility of the rear addition from North Chalmers near the intersection with West Chalmers. This photo on the left shows the rear of the building. The existing wood bay to the left will be removed along with a portion of the surrounding masonry wall to allow a small shed roofed addition. The non-historic wood frame port structure on the right will be removed and replaced by a new outdoor dining terrace covered by an open pergola. The existing masonry opening for the rear door to the screen porch will be slightly enlarged for a new door to the dining terrace, which is highlighted in blue. A new window in a new masonry opening will be added to the rear adjacent to the door, also highlighted in blue. One window will be replaced in its existing opening with new clad-wood windows to match the historic profiles, highlighted in purple. The remaining windows, including frames, sashes, brick molds, and trim, are to be completely restored. Minor masonry repairs will also be made to all elevations. The red highlighted areas in the existing plan to the left show the portions of the rear exterior wall to be removed. The proposed plans at right show the new addition, highlighted in blue, that extends 4'9" from the existing rear wall. The addition allows for the expansion of the family room on the interior and contains a new set of sliding doors to access a new rear deck. On the east elevation, 7 windows highlighted in purple will be replaced in the existing openings with new clad-wood windows to match the historic profiles. The remaining existing windows are to be restored. At the front elevation, the historic wood bay to the left is to be restored. The porch is proposed to be rebuilt with new guards and rails. All of the windows are existing and will be restored. The original front porch was altered or demolished at some point in the past and replaced with a larger one. The existing porch is proposed to be reconstructed with the same area and dimensions. However, there is evidence of the original front porch the building had from this historic photo shown at left and corroborated by the excerpt from the sandboard map shown at right. The original porch was the same width, but only extended forward as far as the top of the stair in alignment with the foremost front wall. The porch should either be maintained as it is currently, or if it is to be reconstructed, it should also be reduced in size to the original footprint. The commission guidelines for inappropriate changes made in the past state that many buildings have been altered over time. Often these alterations represent inappropriate changes. When rehabilitation work is being undertaken, consideration should be given to removing inappropriate additions and changes, restoring the building to its original design and character. Existing situations that are inappropriate may be maintained if no substantial work is to be undertaken on them. However, existing changes that are inappropriate may not be retained if they are to be rebuilt or substantially altered. Reconstruction of the porch at its current size does not meet the commission's guidelines. The owner is not proposing to reconstruct a roof over the porch to match the historic image, but constructing the porch to match the historic size will allow this to be done in the future if they so choose. Staff recommends that the project as shown on the drawings dated 11/11/22 is approved with the following modification. The proposed new front porch shall be reduced in size to match the footprint of the historic porch based on historic documentation, or alternatively, the existing front porch may be maintained and repaired. And any replacement masonry units used in the repairs are to match the existing in size, shape, color, texture, and finish. Mortar shall be the existing, shall match the existing in color, profile, texture, and strength or type. And samples of masonry are to be provided for review with the resubmission of the permit drawings. Alderman Knudsen of the 43rd Ward issued a letter of no objection on January 11th, 2023. The Sheffield Neighborhood Association was contacted but did not respond. The project has been reviewed by the Seminary Townhouse Association, which issued a letter of approval on December 20th, 2022. The architect and owners are in attendance and able to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Tyler, for the presentation. Commissioners, any questions for Tyler? Seeing none.
I've got a quick question. Sorry about that.
Sure.
I'm hoping, either Tyler or maybe this is a question for the owners and the architects. In the drawing set that, we received, I know that front porch and I believe its depth was a dimension that was in question. On the drawings, though, on the existing and the proposed site plan, the overall dimensions look to be the same, which I think is 10.5 feet.
Yeah.
So I was just hoping to get some clarification on that.
So to clarify, we're saying that the existing front porch should be maintained, or if they're making substantial modifications to it, following the guidelines, it should match what the historic footprint was.
Okay, so that doesn't sound like they're seeking to extend it, though.
The design of the porch, like the guards and rails and everything, is not in question, just the dimension.
And I guess that's my point in question is it doesn't appear that dimension has changed, unless I'm reading the drawings incorrectly.
Yeah, so we are saying that it should be changed. The drawings is what we received for permit. And we are recommending that depth of porch be reduced if the porch is to be reconstructed. But it looks like.
So it wouldn't be in this packet. It wouldn't be in this packet. It'll be in the future, them coming back for reapproval.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Commissioner Fair. I think any other questions from commissioners? Seeing none, let's hear from the project architect. So Julie Gross. Julie?
Oh, good afternoon. Yes, Julie Gross and my partner Jack Stoneberg from Stoneberg Gross Architects. It is an honor to work on this fabulous Victorian house that was designed and built in 1884 for the Seminary Theological Society for their school in the Pullman district. And we are very honored to have done a very small addition on the back, which Landmarks has approved. And the front porch or deck, we presently at this time could retain the existing structure and keep it to that depth if that is okay with the Landmarks Commission.
Which is, I think, that 10'6" dimension, right?
Yeah.
Which is just to clarify, is that the existing
Yes.
porch depth? So you would
Yeah,
like to
that's-
retain the existing porch depth?
Yes, the owners and clients would like to retain that existing depth of the structure of the porch and just do an additional deck and railings. And per the historical photographs that we've reviewed or from a specific book and the image that you showed, we are rebuilding the skirt to be very much similar to the original wood skirt that was on the building, and keeping with the character by doing historical railings and creating a wood deck, a wood composite deck that would go with the historical character of the district and the structure.
Just to be really clear, the options provided by our proposed conditions are either to continue the deck as it is right now with no changes. It can be maintained and repaired, but not reconstructed in any way. Or to, if it is to be reconstructed, new guards, new railings, new skirt, the depth should be reduced to match the historic depth.
Right. So yes, when we resubmit, Tyler, and thank you. It's so nice meeting you. You've been wonderful to work with on this project. And I think we're clear on that. There's an existing accessibility lift that's you know, that is in question whether or not the current owners want to retain that because they have some elderly parents and that might be useful. Over the years, and so that's one point that we'll discuss with you. If it's it is kind of an eyesore to the front of the house, is this kind of accessibility lift in terms of the historic. It doesn't go with the historic project, and so if that element gets removed, this accessibility lift, then there'll be handrails that need to be replaced where the lift is. And, you know, the current handrails don't meet building code standards. So there's a few questions that we have relative to the existing rails that are there, and if this that we can maybe have a dialogue on, but we're very clear on your point of the current depth and if we need to restore or repair.
Hello. Hi, I'm Sean. I'll also just chime in real quickly that just in going along with what Jack said about the wheelchair lift.
Hey, Sean, do you mind introducing yourself to
yes,
everybody?
Sorry about that. I'm Sean Sirkin. I purchased the house with my wife, Elisa Ochoa, in November. So somewhat recently, I think, or no, October, one of the two. So we're the new owners. And it's been awesome working with Jack and Julie, and thank you, Tyler, for everything. I was just going to chime in with the wheelchair lift. I was actually contacted by the HOA, the head of the HOA, and asked if we were going to remove it because that was actually installed illegally by the previous homeowners, and it was before this guy was the head of the HOA, so he was like hoping that we were going to remove it because it doesn't go along with the guidelines of the actual internal STA. So and we don't have a use for it. I don't want parents visiting, so we're just gonna get rid of it. And but yeah, I don't know how that affects whatever needs to be fixed because there will just be a big open space there at that point.
Yeah, well, we could talk to Tyler about that. So yeah, if that is going to be removed, then that handrail.
So again, to be clear, that just an addition of what, and this is essentially the decision for the commissioners. The guidelines state that substantial, they use the word substantial changes. So if in writing the conditions, we view changing all of the replacing the decking, changing all of the proposed work that's shown in the application that we received as a substantial change, and therefore triggering the requirement to more closely or to try to return it to its historic condition. I'm not sure that just removing the lift would be a substantial change, but completely reconstructing the deck except for the structure is a substantial change, although the commission can decide.
Got you. And so we would have to replace like this gap that would be left by the lift with a handrail. And we would want that handrail to meet the thrust and leverage structural requirements of the building code, which this existing handrail, it's a flimsy. So I guess that becomes, it's a kind of a nuance, but I think we're here to agree with everything that you're saying, Tyler. We understand, Jack and Julie, the architects and the homeowners agree with everything that you're saying about the scope of how much we can repair and how you're looking at it relative to it being maybe too much if we replace the wood deck, et cetera. So it'll be, I guess, an internal discussion with Sean and Elisa, the homeowners.
Yeah. So,
and then we'll make our modifications to the plans when we resubmit tomorrow morning.
Yeah, this is helpful to bring this up.
Yeah, and if the conditions are approved as they're written now, that leaves either option open. So either when we receive a permit that shows either option.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yep.
I guess I had a question that, I mean, it was kind of talked about, but I'm not exactly sure where we land. Where like again, let's just say the railings as is, if those were not constructed appropriately, or again, if they're loose or just too short for like what even code is, like how does that work? Just so I can talk to Jack and Julie, like with an understanding of what
they're allowed to be maintained. They're allowed to be maintained and repaired.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt? I do want to say that if you have railings that don't meet code and you need to replace them, we would not view that as a substantial alteration.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I was confirming, I guess,
Okay.
before I talked to Jack and Julie about what we, the original thing is beautiful. It's just, it's a lot to, it's pretty intricate. It's a lot to do. So I just want to understand what the options are and what that means. So that answers my question. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Deanna, for clarifying that. Commissioner Fair.
Yeah, I just had one follow-up question for Tyler. I wasn't sure if we knew from that Sanborn map that you shared earlier, if we knew what that dimension was. It's
No,
the 10
we
foot
don't.
6 now.
We don't have the dimension, but we're basing on how it was drawn, showing that it's aligned with the front wall.
That makes sense.
The Sanborns are not always drawn exactly to scale, but the difference between the historic size and the current size is really substantial enough that we would be able to tell the difference from the Sanborn.
Yep. Okay, that makes sense. I think the kind of two options or approaches are pretty clear.
And Commissioner, if I might just add, typically in these situations, you could maybe see some evidence, physically on site underneath if there are certain structural, conditions where it was extended, and you may be able to judge based on physical evidence.
That's a good point. Thank you for that.
If I could just say, I've looked at the structure underneath the deck. As architects, we've looked at that. And you can see the original deck was by, the structure has been added to. The framing has been extended. The other thing, and thank you, Tyler, for putting this Sanborn up. I think this Sanborn mat is fairly accurate because if you look at the drawing of the front porch, the center pavilion, entry pavilion extends beyond because you can see in perspective by the depth of the column because the column is in line with the masonry. So I think the Sanborn is pretty accurate on fairly, I mean, it's just a diagram, but the diagram is very accurate that the front porch did align with the masonry, but the center pavilion that extends higher hierarchically was in front by the depth of the columns, which extend in front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell them about the IHPA.
Oh, we have been working with IHPA prior to actually Landmark Chicago. We have reviewed most of this project with them to make sure that we were absolutely on the right track because it was our intention to do the right thing and try and progress with the tax freeze as well because the amount of money or investment in the project. Their discussion they've approved the work pretty much that we've discussed with them. And the only other comment that I could say is in discussing the front porch with them is that as long as we kept the wood structure, they didn't have an issue with the porch extending beyond because of the Secretary of Interior standards, they didn't have the ability to force the client or owner to remove the porch. So the wrapping, the rails weren't as significant for them, but their preference was that we do the right thing, which is to keep it at its original size, but they didn't have any enforcement in making us change it as long as long as we followed the Secretary of Interior's rules.
So that's clear.
In terms of the depth.
Tyler, we're pretty clear on how
Like
we're moving forward.
Yeah.
We just,
Thanks.
I think Julie just wanted to say that IHPA has been a great asset and assistance to us over the last couple of months.
Yeah, thanks for that background. It sounds like the Historic Preservation Division also has done a similar kind of mindset as Illinois Historic Preservation. I think the recommendations are pretty clearly lined out. So I think with that, any other questions or points of discussion, commissioners? Seeing no further discussion, I'd like to request a motion to adopt the staff recommendation. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Commissioner Fair.
Has moved. Do we have a second?
Second, Commissioner Ponce.
Seconded by Commissioner Ponce. We'll do the roll call. Commissioner Hughes.
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes, yes. Commissioner Rubin.
Yes.
Is a yes. I'm a yes. And the motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you for the thoughtful work that you guys have done, and good luck.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, Tyler, for your help.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Moving on to item number 3 on the agenda, 841 West Chalmers, 43rd Ward, Alderman Knudsen, McCormick Row House District, the replacement of an existing one-story rear addition and new one-story addition. And Tyler, here you go.
Okay, this is 841 West Chalmers. The subject property is an end unit of one of the rows of row houses along West Chalmers in the McCormick Row House District. They were designed by AMF Colton and Sons as housing to provide rental income for the Presbyterian Seminary of the Northwest. 2 additions are a part of this proposal: a new single-story addition located on the side of the building near the rear, behind an existing masonry bay, and a new rear addition. The front stair and stoop is also proposed to be reconstructed to match the existing. These photos show the front elevation on the left and the rear elevation with the existing rear addition to be replaced by the proposed on the right. The proposed side addition serves as a small sunroom and accommodates 2 flights of stairs that provide vertical circulation between the renovated kitchen at the first floor and the basement level. A 14.5-foot long by approximately 12-foot high section of the north sidewall containing 4 windows will be removed to create the opening connecting the addition to the rest of the interior. The proposed side addition projects 4 feet beyond the adjacent historic masonry bay. The masonry opening providing access to the existing rear addition will be slightly enlarged to 16 feet in width and 9 feet in height. The proposed rear addition will be set back slightly further from the sidewalls and extend the same distance back as the existing addition, giving it a slightly smaller footprint overall. The rendering on the right shows the proposed side addition. The exterior of the addition is mostly glazing, in contrast from the solid masonry of the historic structure, and at 1 story it is clearly ancillary. The chamfered corners and plan are consistent with the angled walls of the masonry bays, and the large area of glazing references the conservatory-like additions that were common during the period of the historic building's construction, but does not directly mimic them. The proposed side addition is similar to one previously approved by this commission at 858 West Belden, and a historic side addition in 832 West Belden that has since been reclad at some point since initial construction. The side addition will be visible from West Chalmers, but because it's located near the rear and only extends partially beyond the adjacent masonry bay, it will be minimally visible. Staff recommends approval of this project as proposed on the drawings dated 10/16/22 with these conditions. First, masonry used for the base of the rear addition and side addition shall complement but be differentiated from the historic masonry. Samples of masonry units and mortar for new construction shall be provided for review with the permit application. Second, window details for all new windows shall be provided with the permit application. Commissioners, you may notice that one of the conditions that was originally included in the draft briefing notes relating to front railings has been removed. The front porches and railings are consistent throughout the entire complex, and that consistency has been maintained by the requirements of the Seminary Townhouse Association. Staff recommends that maintaining the railing consistent with the rest of the complex is appropriate. We have received 6 letters of support from neighbors, which were included in your packet. We also have received a letter of no objection from Alderman Knudsen's office. The Seminary Townhouse Association has not issued a letter. As with the other project, the neighborhood association was also contacted but did not respond. We have the owner and architect here who can answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tyler. Commissioners, before we go to the owner, any questions? Seeing none, let's hear from the owner and project architect. Is it Heidi Paul?
Hi, how are you guys?
Hello.
Thank you so much for taking the time to review my home. This is actually our second home we used to live in another house in this association and we loved it so much. We moved to another one. And we just want to stay here for the rest of our lives. And we appreciate you guys taking a look at this and seeing if we can, if we're able to modify it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It seems very exciting. Commissioners, any questions? I'm seeing none. No questions. Do we have any points of discussion on this project? Seeing none, let's move to, I'd like to request a motion to approve and adopt the staff recommendations. Do we have a motion?
So moved, Commissioner Ponce.
Commissioner Ponce has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second Commissioner Rubin.
Commissioner Rubin has seconded, and we'll do the roll call. Commissioner Hughes?
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes, yes. Commissioner Fair?
I'm a yes as well.
And Commissioner Fair is a yes, and I'm a yes, and the motion carries unanimously. Congratulations and good luck on your second home. Exciting. All right, we're going to move to item number 4 of 5, 3248 South Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, 4th Ward, Alderman King, Calumet Giles Prairie District. The proposed new construction of 14 masonry, 2-story raised townhomes facing Calumet and Martin Luther King Drive. And Emily Barton, hi.
Hi. I guess it's finally my turn. So the subject lot here is located between Calumet and Martin Luther King Jr. Drive to the east and the west, and 33rd Street to the south. While originally home to a series of townhouses, the lot has been vacant for decades. And so this proposal is to construct 14 new single-family townhouses on the site. So just to give you some more context of where this property is, it's a little bit of an odd condition. The property is highlighted in yellow, and you can see where it's located within the district, which is outlined in red. You can see there's a fairly diverse context. Large mid-century apartment buildings shown in green, the Pershing Magnet School directly to the west shown in blue, and then the vacant funeral home directly to the north of the subject lot there in pink. Here's some of the character of Calumet south of the site and the rest of the district as well, just for your reference. So as I mentioned, the development has some unique context with 3 of the lot elevations facing streets. Because of this siting, you can see there are front setbacks on 2 elevations with the green lines and side setbacks on 1 shown in orange. The proposed townhouses are 2 separate massings with 7 attached units facing Calumet and 7 attached units facing King Drive. The proposed development, which is outlined in red, will have front yard setbacks of 10 to 12 feet, depending on the unit, both along King Drive and Calumet. Although the predominant front yard depth along Calumet is consistently 15 feet on this block, the rest of the district features a whole range of front setbacks, including 0 setback at 3436 South Giles, all the way up to nearly 19 feet at 3130 South Prairie. The stretch of King Drive features the rear yards of buildings on King Drive. So you can see highlighted in yellow, it's mostly garages. And because of this, there aren't really any front setbacks along King to use as context. So because of this wide range of district-wide front setbacks, staff recommends that the proposed 10 to 12 feet is compatible. The development side setback along 33rd Street is 5 feet with a proposed driveway midway utilizing an existing curb cut. A new 5-foot metal fence is also proposed to be installed around the property with a rolling gate at the driveway. Each building is proposed to be 146 feet long, with each unit approximately 21 foot 7 inches wide. The 2 buildings are 38 feet 8 inches deep, separated by a 26-foot wide driveway, which is used to access each unit's attached 2-car garage. Each unit features a raised entry, compatible with the other stoop heights throughout the district, 6 feet. And the buildings are proposed to be 37.5 feet tall, with an additional rooftop access doghouse projecting another 4 feet above the parapet. This is all well within the range of historic building heights found in the district. A pressed metal cornice caps the building with matching protruding metal bays, both characteristic of the area. The use of masonry cladding and tall stoops are features typical for residences in this district. The townhouses feature 3 main designs with different variations, making each unit facade slightly different. They feature differently shaped bays, different door surrounds, and different window configurations in order to create visual interest. Here are just some more examples for you within the district showing the combined use of masonry with pressed metal bays. The predominant materials proposed are brick and cast stone, 2 different colors of brick, Canyon Clear Smooth Belden and Claret Clear Smooth Belden both modular brick in two different colors. One is browner, one is redder. The cast stone is General Shale Limestone by Renaissance. The three different cladding materials alternate, so no two materials are next to each other. Because there are only 7 units per street elevation, this gives enough variation so that there are no exact repeats. Staff recommends that the color of the mortar shall be revised to match the masonry color, and final material samples need to be submitted with the permit application. The buildings incorporate smooth cut limestone sills, lintels, and cornice, and the stairs are proposed to be cast concrete with metal railings and newel posts. So both the Alderman and GAP Community Organization have reviewed this project, and a letter of support was included in your packet. You can see we're recommending approval with the conditions shown. The architect and the property owner, I believe, are both here if you have any questions for them, or me.
All right, thank you, Emily. Commissioners, any questions for Emily before we hear from the architect? Commissioner Hughes.
Yes. Hi, Emily. Thank you. Can you go back to your last slide? I'm a little concerned, or I guess in question of the 2 brick colors at the bottom. There's much more variation in the rendering, which is nice. Like you said, it is providing that contrast, but the actual samples look very, very close in color, and I'm afraid won't have the same effect that the rendering is showing here. So whenever you guys are approving materials, can we make sure those have a little bit more variation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Good point. And are you saying that not only the contrast between the materials, but are you saying like within the actual field of the masonry that it shouldn't be so, or just, you know, within like, because you're looking at the red corner, it looks like maybe there's like a little bit, it's not so monolithic. There's a couple, is that what you're referencing, or just the colors?
Referencing the colors of the 2 bricks.
I would maybe chime in on that and say maybe a little bit of both. You know, and I'm sure, you know, usually when you get the boards of the masonry samples, there's a range that's there, but, you know, I think Commissioner Hughes picked up that the, you know, 2 tones of what's supposed to be kind of a, you know, I guess more of a tan brown in the renderings and more of a kind of reddish brown, you know, are coming across as being pretty close. And then the 2 sample images, which is just what they are reading very, you know, monolithic. So I think some variation helps it, you know, kind of fit in a little bit with the rest of the historic district.
Sure.
Thanks, Commissioner Fair. Any other questions for Emily before we hear from the architect? Seeing none, let's hear from the architect, project architect, John Hanna.
Yeah, hello, John Hanna here. You know, I'm very happy about this project. You know, this site was zoned commercial, and you know, back many years ago they widened King Drive. So what happened is exposed the rear of many of the houses on this block. So the ability to be able to do townhouses on this property puts 2 fronts, you know, on this, you know, one on King Drive and one on Calumet. So I think it's an asset, and I'm happy that we were able to achieve this. Again, thanks for Emily's help and all your support in this, and we look forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna. And are you open to sort of kind of refining the bricks a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a good comment, and we appreciate. We will make that suggestion come true.
Excellent. Even within, you know, each color palette, maybe there can be a little more variation between, you know, so it's not just one solid brick color throughout.
Of course, no problem.
All right, commissioners, any questions? Points of discussion? Commissioner Hughes.
Sorry, you guys, I'm chatty today. Another thing I wanted to, this is a compliment to the architect and owners here. I'm extremely excited that this block is going to be repopulated. And also I do have an appreciation that you guys did put a cornice on top of the townhouses as well to just give it that nicer finish, and also to keep everything cohesive with all of the different variations. So kudos to you guys. We're excited. Anytime there's more, population and growth on the South Side, we love to see it, especially when there's thought put into the design. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Commissioner Fair?
I'll be quick. Just a question I noticed in the renderings. It looks like on the King Drive side of this infill, there's a gate that'll be installed along the street line, but it looks like on the flip side on Calumet that it didn't appear there, and I didn't pick it up on the site plan. So just was curious if that's going to be consistent. I think, that's a notable feature that you'll find throughout that district. And if so, picking that up on the Calumet side.
Right. It is the intention to have a 5-foot wrought iron fence all around the whole property.
Awesome. Okay.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Commissioner Fair. Thank you, Mr. Hanna. If there's no further discussion on this, like to request a motion slightly amended to include some more refinement of the masonry, have some variation and more accurate colors to somewhat of the renderings are showing. With that, do we have I guess that was Commissioner Hughes's motion.
It is, yes.
Second that,
Perfect.
Commissioner Fair.
Commissioner Fair has seconded that. And we'll do the roll call. Commissioner Ponce.
Yes.
Commissioner Ponce is a yes, and Commissioner Rubin
Yes.
is a yes. I'm a yes. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, and look forward to seeing this development come to fruition.
Thank you very much.
Next project and final project is 1118 North Winchester, the second ward, Alderman Hopkins, East Village District. It's a violation. Proposed reconstruction of masonry front facade to match a historic appearance. And back to Tyler Taylor on this presentation.
Thank you. This is 1118 North Winchester. This project is a proposed reconstruction of the front facade to address violation. The building is located within the East Village District, mid-block between West Thomas to the south and West Vision to the north. The subject property is a worker's cottage that at some point had a faux stone cladding installed over the original brick facade. The original windows and porch had been replaced as well. In August 2022, a permit application was received for the removal of the faux stone cladding and restoration of the original brick beneath. The permit was approved with the condition that historic preservation was to be notified if, upon removal of the stone cladding, the condition of the original facade required any change in the scope of work. Per the applicants, after the cladding was removed, the porch was in danger of collapse and the decision was made to demolish it. After the porch was demolished, there was concern the rest of the facade was unstable and it was demolished as well. Historic preservation was not notified, learned of the demolition after it had already happened, and did not have a chance to verify the condition of the original facade prior to its demolition. The photo on the right shows the condition of the original brick after the cladding was removed, but was received after the demolition. The image at left shows the building immediately after the front exterior wall was entirely removed. The photo on the right shows the condition at the time staff visited the site, with plywood and Tyvek constructed to provide a temporary enclosure. The Department of Buildings visited the site at Historic Preservation's request and issued a stop work order. The owner is required to get a new permit to address the violation. All of the limestone from the window arches and bands was salvaged and will be reinstalled. The medallions at the first floor level were salvaged in good condition and will be reinstalled. The medallions at the second floor level were salvaged but were damaged. These will be repaired and reinstalled. An intact stained glass window was discovered behind the plywood covering the first floor transom and will be reinstalled. A new stained glass window will be made for the transom above the second floor window. Very little of the face brick was salvaged, shown here on the bottom left. At the time staff visited the site, the rest of the face brick had already been disposed of. This proposal is for a reconstruction of the facade as close as possible to its historic condition, with the information available and with new and salvaged materials. The salvaged materials will be reinstalled at their former locations, and the brick coursing will be replicated as closely as possible. The limestone bands will be replaced. Openings will be restored to their original size and shape. The arches above the windows will be reconstructed with the salvaged limestone. The masonry opening for the entryway had been modified and will be completed with a new stone header. The opening for the basement window had been enlarged on the north or right side in the elevation only, and the reconstructed opening will be restored to its original width, aligned with the opening above. The front porch will be replaced with a new one without a roof. The design should be modified to eliminate the solid masonry walls, and all railings should be open metal. Note the proposed window configuration is different than the non-historic windows that were demolished. There are historic precedents in the immediate area for the proposed configuration, with a transom over a single picture window at the first floor level. The brick is proposed to be replaced with new brick manufactured by the Summit Brick Company, product number LB810 in burgundy smooth color. This appears to be a very close match to the original in color, texture, and finish. The new bricks are 5/8 of an inch shorter than the original and approximately 1/8 inch taller. Because of this difference, it is not possible to reuse the salvaged bricks along with the new bricks, as the difference in size will not allow the correct coursing pattern. The original raked mortar joints were 5/16 inch with dark gray mortar tinted slightly red to match the brick. The details here show the joint at 3/8 of an inch. We are recommending the joints be reconstructed at 1/4 of an inch to account for this difference, or for the difference in height between the original and new brick, to allow the overall coursing to match the original. Staff recommends that first, as proposed, the front facade removed contrary to the approved permit shall be reconstructed to match the removed facade in size, brick coursing, detailing, and overall appearance. Since the historic brick was not salvaged for reinstallation, the reconstruction of the front facade with the Summit brick burgundy that I introduced, matching the historic bricks as closely as possible in size, color, and texture, is approved to prevent further, is approved. The salvage medallions from the first floor, the repaired salvage medallions from the second floor, and the salvage stone lintels and window headers shall be reinstalled. Second, a mock-up of brick coursing and joint size, mortar color, and profile shall be reviewed and approved by historic preservation staff at the site prior to construction. And third, the proposed drawings dated December 22nd, 2022, shall be modified to address the following. As mentioned, the front porch railings shall be open metal railings. Dimension details of the eave and soffit shall be provided with permit plans. The mortar joint shall be 1/4 inch wide. Restoration details of the salvage stone medallion shall be provided with the permit plans, and brick molds matching the historic profiles shall be installed around the replacement windows, and details should be or shall be provided with the permit plans. Alderman Hopkins' office is aware of the project. The East Village Association was provided with the facade drawing for review, but did not offer a comment prior to this meeting. The contractor and owners are in attendance and able to answer questions. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Tyler. Commissioners, any questions for Tyler before we hear from the owner? Commissioner Rubin?
Yeah, I did have a question. Given the condition of the original bricks that was fairly significantly deteriorated once the paneling was taken off, in trying to find the right matching color for replacement brick, were those were the best examples of the retained brick cleaned before the color matching was done? Oh, you have an example right here.
I have,
okay,
I
great.
have the brick on my desk.
Excellent.
And I also have I have the sample that was provided as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so we looked at these in person.
Okay, good. Just making sure, because there's so much deterioration, and only able to salvage a little bit, making sure that all the gunk and whatever needed to come off of that original one before doing the color matching rather than doing it to the dirty brick. Just good practice, making sure it's happening.
Great. Thanks, Commissioner Rubin. Thanks, Tyler. Any other questions for Tyler? Seeing none, let's hear from the owner of the development team. Is it Jeff Myra that's here?
I'm Jeff. I'm the general contractor. Jeff Myra.
Myra.
Thank you. And I'm Andrew Coughlin, one of the co-owners with my wife, Allison.
Great. Would you like to make a statement?
You know, you guys, I recognize that you are towards the end of your very long day here. I've been through it since the start with all of you guys. I'd like to just use my time to thank Tyler for going great back and forth with us. He's been excellent. Obviously, we just want a home, and our intention throughout all of this has just been to get it to be as historically correct as possible. We are very excited to be able to start work again with the city's permission and get the wall built back up as best as it can be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the owner and development team on this project, violation project? All right. Well, Commissioner Hughes.
Yeah, I'm just curious about the chain of events leading up to the demolition of that front facade and the porch. You know, I know that I'm not aware of, I only know what Tyler presented here and what's in our packet, but is there a reason that the team did not reach out to the historic preservation group once the cladded facade was removed so that our team can get out there and take a look and help you guys assess what, if any at all, could be saved and salvaged?
I can respond. This is Jeff Mayra. When the stone veneer came off, we, our mason was reviewing the conditions of everything, and then was in the process of looking for the proper bricks or things that we could do to either salvage or replace. And during that process, we felt concerned with the front porch. It was leaning significantly and was a real concern of potentially falling down. And so we had the demo team come to remove that for safety purposes. And when they removed that, they felt, along with the demo team, along with the mason, felt that the wall was not in a safe condition to stay. We didn't have time to bring in anyone from the Landmarks Commission. After that came down, we contacted them within a couple of days, and then were able to we heard back from them within a week or so later after we contacted them. So that type of, we just didn't have space to get them there to give their perspective on that.
The only other color I can add to that, since I'm not a mason in any sort of way, when I was there trying to find out about the stained glass that was behind the plywood there, I recognized that the porch was tilting as I was standing on it to try to look and see into the building to take a look at that historic window. Aside from that, when the wall did come down, I just note that we reached out to Landmarks after that to seek their guidance. Thank you.
And just on top of that too, a previous owner had taken out the underneath portion of the porch, put in a side door and added a door to the basement, added kind of like a illegal unit. And so it was really structurally, it just had a lot of structural issues, and it was very concerning.
Yeah, I guess my response to that is a lot of these cases that come before us sort of set the stage for how things are to operate moving forward. And, you know, we want to just make sure that we're being inclusive of this team. And because I'm not a Mason, and I'm not doubting that it was structurally unsound, right? I'm not refuting that by any means, but we do want to make sure that this team is included and that they have a say as well. I am glad to hear that you guys are constructing the facade as closely to the original as possible. And in the future, we just want to make sure that if something like this happens again, that we're ahead of the 8 ball and making sure the historic preservation team is included.
Yeah, and I'd like to add, along with Commissioner Hughes's comments, you know, obviously safety is first, right? And that's the primary concern. And we do want to make sure that we do contact the staff, which is quite superb, right? And we need to have that documentation and everything so that we can move forward and you can move into your home soon. And Commissioner Hughes is correct. We don't want to set the stage for ask for forgiveness rather than permission. You know, we don't want to do that, but safety first. And now that, you know, we have the recommendations moving forward, let's continue on the process.
Thank you for both of those points.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes, Commissioner Ponce, for those points. You know, I think one positive thing is that you did take a photograph, right? Because that was your photograph. So that is one positive thing, that we're able to have that, and you were able to restore those, you know, save those decorative elements. So you know, with that, I think we all appreciate that. Any other questions, commissioners? Points of discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to request a motion to adopt the staff recommendation.
So moved, Commissioner Fair.
Commissioner Fair has made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you. Commissioner Hughes has seconded. Do we, let's do the roll call. Commissioner Ponce?
Yes.
It's a yes. And Commissioner Rubin?
Yes.
Is a yes. And I'm a yes as well. So that's it. Thank you. Good, you know, good luck in the restoration, and we're definitely going to be watching and want to see how this gets restored. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you all so much.
And that brings us to the end of our meeting. There's no further business today, so I'd like to request a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Commissioner Hughes.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Do we have a second? As enthusiastic?
I'm enthusiastic about it too. Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Rubin. And I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Ponce?
Yes.
Excellent. Commissioner Fair?
Yes.
And Commissioner Fair is yes. I'm a yes. Thank you all so much for your service. I'm sorry for my internet issues. I look forward to seeing you guys all soon. Happy New Year. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks again to the staff.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, staff. Yep. Good night, everybody.